waited for you to lead us out of Babylon. For I was just a boy when I came here. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my gracious promise and bring you back to this land.
Who are you, old man?
I am Daniel. I seek to tell you a story. A tale of 4 kings. One great, one foolish, one who was deceived, and one who is destined to be regarded as wise for all the ages of the world to come. During those many years, we were living in a foreign land, speaking a foreign language, and living under a foreign king.
My king. I've heard of this man.
Here are the facts. In our timeline of biblical prophecy, the next God-sized event is the rapture, an event when Christ Jesus will gather his bride, the saints, and take them to heaven. However, here is the catch. There are no events, warnings, or signs that predict the rapture. Christ's return is imminent. The only warning you will see with your eyes is the birth pangs of the Antichrist warming up for the 7-year tribulation period. The strategic method God uses is to catch all off guard. Both unsaved and indwelt believers are perfectly timed. His perfection of methodology will block all who wait until the last moment to get things right with the living God. This event will happen in the twinkling of an eye. Following the rapture, there will be a time epoch of 7 years of global tribulation, the last half of which will be the Great Tribulation, meaning hell is released on earth. When this horrific period is completed, Jesus will indeed return with his church, those gathered up during the rapture, as well as the saints of pre-rapture. In this reality, the rapture must occur before the tribulation period. From that moment forward, he will establish his kingdom and reign on the earth for 1,000 years, which is the period Jesus Christ will judge every soul, past and present. Split seconds before this millennial reign, the Holy Word refers to this event as the second coming of Jesus Christ. Thus, the rapture and second coming of Jesus are 2 doctrinally distinct events, which occur at 2 different places on the Lord's prophecy timeline. Keynote: at the rapture, Jesus will return for his saints. At the second coming, he will return with his saints. Another significant point: at the rapture, Jesus will not descend to the earth. He calls the saints upward by gathering them up to meet him. At the second coming, he will descend to the Mount of Olives as a requirement of his earthly reign. Finally, at the rapture, Jesus will bring a blessing for his bride. At the second coming, he will bring judgment for those who refute and reject his indwelling life. This event and the second coming remain a full-on surprise to man, angels, Jesus himself, and the saints of heaven. While God the Father keeps the times, signs, and epochs close to his bosom, Jesus was given the right to clarify this mystery. He said in Matthew 24, verse 36, these words: Of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father alone. That means that Jesus himself does not know the day nor the hour. Human logic cannot unravel this mystery, but the truth remains. Welcome to number 8, Daniel Saves the Day. Today you will discover the method God used to save the day, not only for Daniel and his fellow wise men, but for the future of Israel. Daniel passionately wanted Nebuchadnezzar to realize and understand that the God of heaven had revealed the prophetic truth within his dream, with the knowledge of no human on earth could make known the interpretation. Daniel's job was to connect Nebuchadnezzar with the living Hebrew God and break his nasty habit of calling on demonic, twisted wise men. Let's jump in and explore the details. Let's review our scripture. Remember to keep studying Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 49. But today we're going to emphasize verses 25 through 30. And it says, Then Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows. I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can make the interpretation known to the king. The king said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered before the king and said, As for the mystery about which the king has inquired, neither wise men, conjurers, magicians, nor diviners are able to declare it to the king. However, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in latter days. This was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed. As for you, O king, while on your bed, your thoughts turned to what would take place in the future. And he who reveals mysteries has made known to you what will take place. But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me, more than any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, and that you may understand the thoughts of your mind. Reviewing 6 signs of the coming Antichrist. Before we move forward with Daniel's interpretation, let's review the 6 signs of this coming Antichrist he speaks of. Number 1, deception of false Christ. That's right out of Matthew 24, verses 4 through 5. The masses will be deceived by those claiming to have been sent by a supposed God. Number 2, disputes and wars among the nations. This is out of Matthew 24, 6. Wars and rumors of wars will surface, escalate daily among cultural groups and nations. By taking a few moments in reviewing the daily news, you will find this is one of the most popular ways that the enemy uses to delude the minds of the masses. Number 3, diseases and famines will break out globally. This is out of the verses 7 through 8 in Matthew. In all parts of the world there will be an increase of deadly diseases and famine, in which humanity will not be able to sedate. Number 4, handing over authentic believers for persecution. That's verse 9 in this passage. The persecution of the real deal Christians will increase and become intensified the closer we get to the day, or should I say the moment, of rapture. Number 5, defection and deconstruction of fake believers. Verses 10 through 13 in our Matthew passage. Those who are not authentic Christians will be deceived and leave the faith in Jesus Christ to join the movements and ideologies of the Antichrist. Finally, number 6, declaration of the authentic gospel. That's verse 14. The Spirit will awaken authentic indwelt believers to preach the organic gospel, which, by the way, activates number 4 in our list. These are the same 6 signs Daniel experienced in his period of advising Babylon's 4 kings. This is more proof of the parallel of the book of Daniel and those epochs that Jesus revealed in the book of Matthew, and they are certainly directly connected. Looking at Daniel's faith and his abilities. In our passage, we find Daniel's supervisor, Arioch, ushering Daniel into the king's chambers, proclaiming, "I have found the man who can interpret your dream." This is a significant moment for Daniel and Arioch. Arioch must have had faith in Daniel's abilities. If he were wrong in bringing Daniel forward, he would have lost his head, along with the removal of Daniel's head. As stated, he came before the king in haste or impulse. Setting Arioch's humanness aside, God's divine intervention at this moment was ordained through the ages. Once Daniel was standing before the king, he was asked, "Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation?" Daniel's response reveals the wisdom of God. He says this, "As for the mystery about which the king has inquired, neither wise men, conjurers, magicians, nor diviners are able to declare it to the king." In this single statement, Daniel not only protects the wicked wise men, but he also shifts the focus from humanity to the living God. The wise move Daniel enacted was not only risky, but death-defying. The king was accustomed to hearing the opinions of the gods through his sorcerers. With this demonic pattern, the king is interested in hearing what Daniel's God had to say. Looking at verse 28 in our passage, it says, "However, there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will take place in latter days. This was your dream and the visions in your mind while on your bed." When are these latter days? We are in those days referenced by Daniel. This dream that Nebuchadnezzar had opened the window of prophecies that affect the final years of what the Jewish people call the end of the days of man, which is the closure of the age of the Gentiles. As stated by Orthodox Jews, God gives man 6,000 years of warnings. After that, he comes to rule the earth for 1,000 years to conduct his judgment. Folks, these are the core prophecies contained in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Check this out. Verse 29, "As for you, O king, while on your bed your thoughts turn to what would take place in the future. And he who reveals mysteries has made known to you what will take place." Can you imagine Nebuchadnezzar being faced with the impact of his demonic empire will have on generations to come? Not only does he not realize this wicked demise, he uses it to gain more global control over the world as he knew it. From this deception, God ignites the plan to reduce Nebuchadnezzar to the life of a beast, an animal of sorts. Looking at Daniel rejects the credit of human wisdom. Daniel fully knew that pride is taking the credit that belongs to God. We find this in verse 30. But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me, more than any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, and that you may understand the thoughts of your mind. Mysteries belong to God. The king knew this. This is why he would call on his sorcerers to seek out the mysteries put before him. Daniel made it clear that the revelation of the king's mystery was not a matter for humans to interpret. Furthermore, the interpretation Daniel was about to give was pretty simple: to reveal the thoughts of God while giving the king understanding within his own mind. With that clarification, Daniel moves forward with dispelling the details of the king's dream and what God means by what God is revealing. In conclusion, Daniel passionately wanted Nebuchadnezzar to realize and understand that God, who is in heaven, had revealed the prophetic truth within his dream, with the knowledge of no human on earth could make known the interpretation. Daniel's job was to connect Nebuchadnezzar with the living Hebrew God and break his nasty habit of calling on demonic, twisted, wise men. Pride is ego with an evil bent, and it is rarely seen by those who have it. It hides like a demon behind a bush. If ever a person had the right to be proud from a humanities point, Daniel was that person. But like many authentic prophets and teachers of the ages, Daniel was not interested in fame and a bloated ego. He understood the humility of being a prophet, a servant, and the joy of his created purpose of carrying out the will of the Father. Remember when John the Baptist said, "I am not the light. I am only a voice crying in the wilderness. I have come to announce the coming of the King. Make his path straight. He must increase. I must decrease." True prophets of God have the same humility as our brother John. Each is overwhelmed with the passion of Christ for one purpose: pointing men to the Hebrew God of the universe and beyond. Coming up next, the splendor of wisdom. It is useless for us to attempt to understand how Nebuchadnezzar felt as Daniel made known, word by word, step by step, of the prophecies yet to unfold. On one hand, we would hope the reveal would humble him. But as the word reveals, it elevated his egocentric pride of empirical control. On the other hand, we see the young Hebrew humbly keep his place as a servant, who was selected to deliver the earth-changing revelations of the demise of human empires. One is rewarded, the other is destroyed with his empire. Stay with us as we explore the prophecies that were given to Nebuchadnezzar, interpreted by Daniel, and how they connect to modern times. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure and an honor for you to join us in this episode. Until next time.
I have waited for you to lead us out of Babylon. For I was just a boy when I came here. When 70 years were completed for Babylon.
Have faith, my brothers.